Welcome back to Longbox Diving, where we explore comics and story arcs pulled from the Longbox, and it's time to do another story arc review. Again, we're coming out of X-Men Legacy. This is called Legions Lost, or Lost Legions. Legions Lost. Let me make sure I got that. Lost Legions. It is Lost Legions, and this covers in X-Men Legacy 250, which is a jumbo size book with a nice cover right there. We got 251. 252 and 253. All right, so and the writer again is Mike Carey. It is Mike Carey, and we have Khoi Pham is doing the pencils. And so this is interesting because we kind of go off what happened in the last arc where we had Legion. We come out of the X-Men crossover event, and Legion has some issues with his personalities, and they created a bubble of reality, and Mora, his personality Mora, creates a bubble of reality, and then several of his split personalities stayed out, never came actually back into his head. So they are still out there doing whatever they want to do. And he had the Ben 10 watch where he got to dial the personality that he wanted, which of course each has a different power, and then he could use that power to do whatever he needed to do. But these 16 people never came back to his brain out of the reality that Mora created his personality Mora, not the actual person Mora. And so that's where we start off in here. And in this book, in the first part here, this is actually a supersized edition, so it has other stories in it. It has a reprint of some old comic as well. So basically they're out there and they come across Time Sync. And Time Sync is able to actually kind of not only just move himself through time, but he's able to move things through time as well. So like Magneto shot his ability at him, or some magnetic something, and he's able to warp it and actually goes, you remember the bodies you just passed? Yeah, you just did that. So it's kind of cool stuff. So they have to go through, and they're trying to conquer Time Sync, and he is like kind of kicking their butts a little bit. Rogue goes in, and, kind of into his brain and looking at the other personalities, and they're not in there. They're actually literally out in the world still because of what his personality Moria did. So they put a team together to go hunt these guys down. So we got Rogue, Frenzy, Magneto. So they all kind of go together to hunt this dude down. And so we get a lot of a lot of good fight scenes here. There's Rogue, Gambit, fight with Time Sync. We get some. So it was cool because when Time Sync's fighting Gambit here, he sends Gambit into the past, and he ends up fighting. And if you look at that carefully, these are the people that he's actually fighting. You see there is Sabretooth. And then over the end, you see Bullseye. So when he's fighting Time Sync's just kind of switching him in through time into different periods of time where he is getting pummeled by, I think it's Proteus. I'm not sure, but he's getting pummeled by other guys. And Time Sync doesn't even have to lift a finger. And then, of course, Legion shows up. Time Sync shoots, I can just phase through anything you shoot at me. He ends up stabbing him in the back, and that's when Rogue grabs him, sucks his power out, knocks him down, and they defeat Time Sync. But we then get our first image of Styx. He's creepy. So he is controlling a lot of people, and he's using them and to kind of spy on what's going on with his other cohorts. And then we move on to the next story. It's in here, X-Men 251. And so in here we actually now battle the next person, which is Chain. Chain has taken over this whole town. And every person he touches becomes himself. They wear a collar. It gives 1B, 1C, 1D, and all the different numbers and all this kind of stuff. So they all have some designations of who they are. And they all carry different weapons. And he is really pretty good on... So he's got weapons, and people are shooting at the jet in the sky. He's got non-metal weapons, just like crossbows and whatnot. They're shooting at Magnetos, and Magneto can't stop them. So he's he's pretty good at war, and they're just getting overwhelmed because it is like a whole city is fighting them, right? And so they're just getting. He is again. These guys. I mean, Time Sink gave him a run for money, and now you have Chain here giving him a run for the money, and it's just he's beating the crap out of him. So they finally, I think they use they finally get telekinesis. They're able to pull everybody out for a moment. They retreat, and then he kind of Chain kind of stands down. You see some communication between him and Styx, whatever's going on. Then we see Frenzy kiss Gambit. So apparently, she was upset because she was dating Cyclops, and then Cyclops said, "Go away." And now all of a sudden, she's kissing Gambit. What we find out, it was actually this little girl. Her name is Susan is Sunshine. I believe Susan is Sunshine. Now, the only way to defeat this girl plays on your empathy, right? So she's stirring up these emotions in Gambit and Frenzy, which were there, kind of stirring up a little bit, and they end up kissing, and she's actually just controlling it. So Frenzy realizes the only way to defeat her is to literally rip off her head. So you see that over here. And then Susie starts crying, and they defeat her. And so we got a little problem with David and Rogue and Gambit. He's kind of going through different. He's kind of upset because Styx is trying to control everything, and he's having problems with his powers, etc. But they get it under control, and they go back to get Chain. Now, Chain again has like 1 million people under him, and they're able to find. They had to find number 1 because if you knock out number 1, everybody else drops, right? So they get that. They find number 1 among the millions of cells of the brain. There is one where you belong. Really, leave me alone. I'm warning you. I'll kill you all. Really, that would be interesting to see. And he kind of sucks it back into his brain, and that ends Chain. So we've wiped out Time Sink, we've wiped out Chain, and Susan and Sunshine is wiped out, all back into his brain. So we still have the Bleeding Image, and we have Terminus and Styx. So there are 6 total. And that moves us into the next issue, X-Men 252. And you see that these are pretty cool covers. Now, Bleeding Image, his power basically is he's a living voodoo doll. So when he hurts himself, he hurts you. Seems like a very stupid power. But he uses it, he stabs himself. He doesn't feel any pain, but you do. He puts on a suicide vest. So he is going to blow himself up and kill Rogue. Now, Rogue, I think, had taken a little bit of Frenzy's power, not a lot. He blows himself up, and it almost knocks Rogue out. But she's still okay. Frenzy comes in and kind of gives her a little bit more power to kind of see us invulnerability. So Rogue takes a little bit more of the power to make sure that she's fine. And then we move on to... there's a lot of interpersonal issues going on between Rogue, Gambit, Magneto, Frenzy now with Gambit, and it's just... And then, of course, Legion is just still nuts. So they end up going down to where they believe Styx will be, and he's like in this pit, and there's like an octopus holding. I mean, this weird stuff, like an octopus holding people. So it's almost like Styx. Think of the river Styx, the river that is supposedly separating the real world from hell, and you have all these people there, and they're all being controlled, and you see this image of them dead already, right? Like Styx is putting things in their brain, like you already see you're going to die, and he's got all these people, and he's got suicide vests on all of them, and I'm going to kill everybody unless you turn yourself in. So Legion, David, decides, you know what, the only way to I can't win, the only way to really do this is to go and surrender myself to Styx, which he does. He walks up, and he, offers his hand, and he surrenders himself to Styx, and in essence, and the idea would be, I'm going to surrender myself to you, that way we end all this and we'll be over. Now, you look at that, Terminus shows up. So it didn't end the way they expected. So now Legion has turned himself over to Styx, and Terminus shows up to wipe out the rest of the X-Men. And we're on to 253. This is the conclusion. And it's pretty Terminus, again, the art in here is really good. I mean, he blasts Frenzy there. That was really cool, and they think, he's metal, so they think they're going to wipe him out. So Magneto tries to do that, and Terminus just kind of changes his shell to mud or something along those lines. So now Styx is trying to take control of Legion while they're fighting, and they find out that Legion steps out in front of Terminus. So Legion is supposed to be there with Styx, but Legion steps out in front of Terminus, and that's when Legion realizes he is actually one of the Chain's doppelgangers. So that means they've tricked him, right? So now you've got David fighting Terminus, and Styx is like, what the crap's going on here? And that's when David steps up in front of Styx again, different David, grabs his arm, and it's Rogue. And she starts grabbing his powers and is trying to steal his powers. So they defeat Terminus. They kind of get him to stop, and David absorbs him into himself. They come and David tries to start to absorb Styx. Now Styx is fighting with Rogue, and Rogue is trying to absorb the power of Styx, and they end up in a three-way merge. They're all getting merged together. It is bad news. So Professor X has to go inside, and they're trying to unseparate everybody. And again, Professor X is able to get them all separated. Everything's going great. And then all of a sudden, Rogue says, hey, I've got to go. It's just a couple of thousand light years is all. Don't worry. I can hold on to this power for at least 12 hours, and that should be more than enough. And they all slam into the spaceship, and you now have Shi'ar space rogues holding Rogue hostage. So that goes into our next actual story arc. So that was a 4-issue story arc. Again, it's covered in 250, X-Men Legacy 250, 251, 252, and 253. Written by Mike Carey. Kofam is doing the art. The covers are by Shion. Make sure I'm saying that right. Miko Suyon. Miko Suyon. So the covers are fantastic. I would give them 3.5. Overall 3.5. Some of them I like better than others, but overall 3.5. The story, I liked it a lot. I'd give that a 3.5 as well. And the art inside, I'd give about a 3. It's good in some places, others a little iffy. So overall, 3.3 for this story. It's a really pretty good story and a pretty good story arc. And a lot about Legion, but a lot about what Legion's powers can do individually and how powerful they really are, and how he can go along defeating them even though they're that powerful. It was really kind of a cool story. So if you like that kind of stuff, definitely collect the story arc, and we'll see you next time here in the Lockbox.